Hey everybody, welcome back to part 27 of the ongoing Minneapolis-Moline prototype tractor number X231 restoration series. And it's finally time to start filling this prototype case with the replacement production gear train parts. And honestly, I'm expecting trouble and I'm expecting difficulty, but I just have to look up here to be reminded of what can be accomplished when people set their minds to it. So with Rosie's advice, let's get started. And just a quick rundown of what we got on the bench. Of course, you're more than familiar with the exploded prototype carrier and the damaged prototype ring gear. I have the production 445 carrier and ring gear assembled to one another. Bolts are all torqued down. I've got one of the little differential side gears in. The other one is still out. You'll know why in a minute. We have the heavy cross shaft that the carrier rides on, as well as the bull pinions. These are the production 445 bull pinions. These are the prototype X231 pieces, and they are all, for the most part, identical. There are no numbers stamped in either the productions or the prototypes, so I really can't document any of that, but I wanted to show you one last time. We have some extensive damage to the teeth on the prototype pieces. Here's some more chunks gone here, and of course some profound wear on the teeth as well. So really, I'm going to have to leave these out. They're just too far gone to put back in. I don't want these to continue shedding pieces and allowing those pieces to get ground up and chewed up in there. Really the only difference I can see in the design between the prototype and production is the prototype has the seal surface here, and then we kind of have an interruption, this groove here, before where the splines for the brake discs start. And contrast that to the production pieces. We have the seal surface and it flows right into the splines for the brake discs. That's really the only minor difference I can see between these components at all. Got some nice new Timken bearings already loaded on the bull pinions, brand new races, ready for another tour of duty. Okay guys, I want to do just a quick dry run assembly on the bench here, not only for my own familiarization, but also so you guys have a little bit of an idea of what I'm trying to accomplish when I start putting all these in that case. What I'm going to have to do is install both of the bull pinions just kind of loosely into the bore openings in each brake compartment. They'll just be sitting in there hanging out, no bearing races, nothing really centering them or anything. Then this heavy cross shaft will be fed in through one of the pinions. I will at that time have to have the carrier assembly with the ring gear positioned in there so the shaft can also go through that and into the other bull pinion. Once that is all kind of loosely together, you'll notice this little hole in the middle of the cross shaft. This hole has to be lined up with the bore for this little side gear and pin that I don't yet have put in. And the little pin for the side gear has this peg on it. That peg goes into that hole and basically centers the carrier on the shaft and also locks it to it in position. So that's the gist of it. I'm not going to be able to put these things together in that order on the bench because they're awfully heavy. I've tried 3 times already and I just make a fool of myself each time. So we'll just get them slid together rather quickly here so you can see kind of what it's going to look like once it's all in there. And we'll try and line up. I think you can see we got that little hole pretty much centered in the bore. See if it stays there for me. Drop this other differential gear in. And the shaft for that goes through. If I can line it up, nothing ever works on camera. Get this, there we go, that's dropped in. That gets locked in place with a roll pin, which that punch is just going to simulate at this point. We have the thrust washer for each bull pinion. Those have to be in there. Slide this pinion on, engage it with those side gears. Move this down so you can see a little better. The other thrust washer and the last bull pinion. And there we go. That's the whole assembly. That's what I have to assemble inside that case, hopefully without scratching any of that nice new paint I have in there. And I mentioned that this is one heavy assembly. I couldn't resist. I brought the bathroom scale out here and weighed it just now. As you see it right here, this is right on 80 pounds. So it is substantialicious. Whole lot of heavy iron right here. So that's my task, and get all this assembled in that case. So in goes the left pinion wrapped in a rag to protect the bearing, the gear, the paint, pretty much everything. Followed by the right pinion. And the differential carrier goes in next. Got some rags in the bottom to set it on. And now to feed the bevel gear shaft, and this is where it's going to get difficult. Trying to line everything up. Get everything started. And of course everything's heavy and awkward. There you have started through the carrier. Now to get it to that other bull pinion. There, I think it started. Yep, sliding in. While there's still room, I can get this other side gear in, install the shaft, which will lock the carrier in place. There we go. And now to stake it all in place with this small roll pin right here. It's kind of difficult to reach inside, but you can use this threaded hole in the lower front portion of the brake compartment to gain access to the pin with your roll pin punch. And the goal now is to drive that roll pin in so that it is just less than flush with the surface. Just about like that. And you'd think it'd be kind of difficult to remove that because there's nothing left that is sticking out to gain access to. The light right here for you guys. But the nice part about this design is that the pin is just a little bit shorter than what the overall diameter of the shaft is. So to remove the shaft, just continue driving the pin in until it is completely contained inside the shaft, and that shaft will just pull right back out. So actually really easy to take back apart again. To finish the assembly now, I just need to install the bearing races and the retention plates. And the way this works is the races will go in from both sides, basically center that whole assembly, and then the retention plates will apply pressure to the races and position them accordingly. These plates are adjusted by these stacks of shims, and by adding or removing shims, you can either move your carrier one way, the other way, or increase your bearing tension or decrease. That's how you maintain your proper adjustment. Now, Minneapolis-Moline calls these plates brake plates, and that's because the brake discs actually ride right up against this outside surface in the brake compartment, kind of like a clutch disc would on a flywheel on the back of the engine. So I'll do a quick comparison between the brake plates from X231 and a plate from a production 445. You can see the production version, we have a 10A7065 number on it, and there are no numbers identifying the ones from X231 at all. It's just not something that they bothered with. They are very similar, just a little bit lighter duty than the production version. So I'll do a quick comparison here. You can see the production version is quite a bit beefier. They have a lot more material there. Otherwise, they're pretty much the same. They all house the differential seals, which that's what would go right here in the X231 pieces. And you can see this drilling in the bottom down here. Comes out down there. Both of those are like that. And the production version, if I can find it, is also the same way. And what that is, that's an oil drain hole, kind of relief hole, so that in case any oil seeped past your differential seal, it would find that hole and run harmlessly out the bottom and just collect in the bottom of the brake compartment, rather than coming out and running down the face and getting on your brake discs and causing you problems that way. So pretty similar setup between the production discs and X231, like I said, just a little less material in these. So the first thing I'll do is start the bearing race. And these are just I'd say a very light press fit to a slip fit inside these holes, these bores here. Next, I'll install a stack of the shims. These are all 10 thousandths thick, and X231 had 12 of these, just happen to have 6 on each side. Because everything has changed here, that adjustment has likely been thrown right out the window. So I'll just start with the bulk of them on this side. I got 10 of the shims. And the reason I'm putting so many over here is because that will ensure my ring gear will be positioned, hopefully, very, very far away from the pinion when I bolt the transmission up to the rear end for the first time. I'd rather have a looser fitting gear mesh there rather than something that's tight and binds up before I even have the two components drawn together. Now I'll cap it all off with the brake plate, and you'll notice I don't have an oil seal installed. That's for two reasons. First reason being, if you remember what the overall strategy is here, I'm just trying to make sure that these production parts will fit in the prototype castings and that they will mesh up properly. So you really don't need an oil seal in there to do that. The other reason is even the 445 tractor manual states to leave that oil seal out of the brake plate until you have all your shim packs figured out. The reason being, this plate may come off and on several times to swap shims around and get your adjustment figured out. So each time this is on and off that shaft with all these splines, it gives you another opportunity to damage the lip on the seal and just create a leak. So the overall strategy is just to get it all figured out first and then put the seal on as part of the final step. So get this plate in here, tighten it in, and repeat all the same steps on the other side. And with that, the differential assembly has been fully installed. I got the other brake plate put on with the remaining two shims, and it gave me just the perfect amount of preload on this assembly. Nothing's loose, everything's being held in where it needs to be, and the best part is, hear that click? There is no bind on any of my side gears, so that means the thrust washers inside these bull pinions are taking up all the slack and are holding the carrier where it needs to be, and I'm not binding through my differential gears. So that is absolutely perfect, actually. It's went in just as it would have in a production 445 rear end housing. So I have the transmission here lined up with the rear end. If you remember, we have the drive pinion loaded in the bottom. So really the last X factor here is whether or not the angular cuts on these gear teeth are still going to be conducive to a good mesh with the two prototype housings holding all these components in the positions that they are currently in. So really the only thing left to do now, join these two pieces together. We will see how these are going to mesh, see if I have the adjustability left to get good backlash, see if all of the efforts up to this point have even been worth it, or if it's all been a gigantic waste of time. So, moment of truth, guys, in the next video.